Yeah, it was fun.
100 questions interesting.
time on the computer on
And
that.
on the weekend, who's
At
gonna,
7:30.
there is
At
a
7:30.
in the office.
Start our meeting with pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Robert May's here. Michael Fritz is not here, getting his hip replaced. We wish him well. Grace Wallen's here, Allison's here, Derek's here, Dave Eggert here, Steve Idle's here. The mayor is here, Corey, Pamela's here as the engineer, Amanda's here, secretary, the Reverend Benetham is here, Warren is here, and Joe London is here. Council minutes, do we have a motion to approve the council minutes from the February 13, 2005 meeting, or is there any corrections, clarifications, additions, or can the minutes be accepted as presented?
Move to accept the minutes as presented.
Second. Motion been moved and seconded to accept the minutes as presented. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, motion passes. Approval and payment of bills. You'll see bills here, consolidated payment of bills. Out of the general fund, we have $193,001.80. Sewer fund is $12,801.88. Liquid fuels is $7,944.04. Is there any questions about the bills presented to be paid, or is there any questions for the treasurer, or can the consolidated payment of bills as reported be paid?
Motion to approve the consolidated payment of bills as reported.
Second. Motion been moved and seconded to pay the bills as reported. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed, motion passes. Approval of treasurer's report. We're going to accept and file for audit the consolidated treasurer's report. You'll see our general fund balances as of February 28th. We have the general fund at $217,507.07. Liquid fuels had $119,887.93. Fire tax had $3,878.74. EMS tax had $2,048.02. Our sewer fund is $249,954.64. Reserve accounts have $182,241.27. Total fund balance is $775,517.70.
Motion to accept and file for the consolidated treasury report as of February 20, 2025.
Second. Motion been moved and seconded to file for audit the consolidated treasurer's report. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, motion passes. Public comment? None?
I have one leader.
This will be your time to address.
Yeah.
I didn't, so I think if you.
Can you state your name and address just for the minutes? So,
Sure.
Yeah.
Alessandra Foster.
okay.
And 110 Ivy Hill Circle, Reading, PA, 19606. Matter of fact, I'm missing a scout meeting.
What, boy, or Scouts of America or Girl
Scouts of
Scouts?
America.
Yeah, I saw my correction there.
Both a female and male in the troop, but my son is doing more than you. I'm a scout leader, so I'm missing a meeting to come here tonight.
Normally you wouldn't, but we had some attendance issues from our normally scheduled meeting last week, so that's why we're here tonight.
It's all good. I'm here to address an issue that happened in St. Lawrence on 12/12,
Okay?
2024. That apparently the police were made aware of, but the township wasn't made aware of till later. And I kind of touched bases with some people. So we were driving to a scout meeting. I was following behind my children. We came across the road onto North Binghamton. There was a man draining his pool December 12th. It was 36 degrees that day. By the time we hit it at night, it was about 30 some degrees. I called 911 at, kudos to the police, 911 at 6:57. By 7:03, the first police officer was on the scene, which is wonderful, because we could get the road shut down after they almost died, and I got to watch that. And then us and the person in that car we hit, we almost got hit by a car. Then there was another accident within 6 minutes. So the police came and shut it down. First response, who fishtailed and also went to the grass before any police officers were there, advised the responding fire personnel that the road was sheet ice and to proceed with caution. It's in the report that the man drained his driveway, or drained his pool into his driveway December 12th. At this point, 26 degrees. You but I did send, I have been working with the township on the side, and I know it's busy. I think the first time I made a phone call, somebody was out for 2 weeks for the knee replacement, and I have that document right too. But I first made a phone call in, I know, I'm so sorry, it's a long day for me. Yeah, so it was probably you with the knee replacement, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and
Yeah, so, yes, I made my phone call, sorry, I forgot, I didn't put the name together because I wasn't looking at my notes.
that's okay.
Right, and then December 26th, outgoing call, February 7th, another one, followed up. My question is, because according to the police, it's perfectly okay to take a hose from my pool, put it in my driveway that's down sloping into a public street in freezing cold temperatures, and that does not go against any law or violation per township.
I don't know if it is or not, so we'll back up a little bit. So we used to be under what is called an MS4 permit by Pennsylvania DEP, and it clearly prohibits you from draining a swimming pool out anywhere on pavement
Well,
because of the chlorine in the water and stuff like that.
Right.
So
that's
we,
PSA.
for a period of more than 5 years, we had always been telling citizens they weren't allowed to do that. Then we were exempted from that type of permit. We no longer have that MS4 permit. So therefore, but we've never really made that public. You know, we still had all the good things you should be doing for water quality, So I'm not familiar with enough law how you create a public nuisance, like draining water out on a driveway and then creating an ice hazard. So are you asking, is there any way that, the police told you that's not an illegal activity, I guess? Is that your question?
No, I actually talked to, an officer today, and they said nothing's criminal. Pools can be drained, if you're draining it on your property, even though you know, there's nothing wrong with being stupid. No, what I was told. It's not against the law. So you can run water off of your personal property into a public street in freezing cold temperature, have it shut down, have somebody call 911, have the road closed, get a salt truck, somebody's paying for diesel, somebody's paying for salt, somebody's paying for the truck, somebody's paying for the 911 call.
Who's the address of this, the perpetrator?
I was on that call that night, I don't know if you remember me. I was talking
I
to
think
you.
I do, but thank you. So I was probably very shut up that night.
Yes, you were.
What was the?
Rightly so.
North Raymond.
Yeah, but what's
I'm
the?
not exactly
Next to
Nursing
the car
North
wash
Bingaman
on
Street.
A little bit of.
Across from, on the same side as the car wash?
No, the opposite. Matter of fact, if you kind of make it right, and if the road is freezing, we didn't shut it down after we almost got hit by a car, you could probably drained your swimming pool down that, and if you timed it right or put it in the right part, you could have put it right in the car wash.
All those houses that are connected, so it's the car wash, and it's like all this connected
Before we get
houses,
to the
it's on the
neighbors. Yeah, before
on
we
the
get to
opposite
the
side right
neighbors.
there.
Yeah, okay.
So in summary, are you asking like, why is this allowed and causing other things? I'm sorry, go
I think
ahead.
there's numerous things.
Illicit discharge ordinance is adopted.
Is it what?
Illicit discharge ordinance is adopted. I thought I did it for you
Yeah.
guys years and years ago. It may be in there. Then the police, that's an ordinance they can enforce, in my opinion. It's an illicit discharge. Could be.
So we had to pass X amount of
We did not.
ordinances because of the permit, which then had enforcement action against them. And just to take it a little bit further, part of that was you're not allowed to wash your car with soap and let it run into the side, onto the pavement and into the streets and the sewers. So there was all kinds of little details in there that we did our best to inform people of and keep putting in the newsletter. But we may have some actionable item off that, based on the description.
Well, that's what I'm here.
Yep.
And I'm here for the township's support.
Here.
I think I have like numerous issues. The fact that one, I own a pool. If I need to drain it in the winter, because we have 3 inches of rain, I take my hose from my pool and put it into my shower downstairs.
Well, that's illegal too.
No, you're supposed to drain it down a water system.
No, you're not. You're not allowed to take the discharge into the sanitary system from a swimming pool.
Well, from PA, that's what we were told
Well, they really want you to put it out on the ground.
Right, and the ground is frozen, and I live on a hill
Right.
that goes into the sidewalk into a street, so I figured instead of killing a neighbor. or
I'd have to go
killing-
back and look, I'm not so, is it illegal discharge to drain your swimming pool to our sanitary system?
For us, it
In
is.
Yeah, it
Exeter
is.
Township?
No, this is St. Lawrence
Right, so
Borough.
I live in Exeter.
Yeah.
Right.
But, you know, they still have an MS4 permit.
But they're besides the happy in the.
You're right.
So
Listen, we had a lot of angst when we got this permit, and a lot of the activities sort of defied logic at some point. So, you know, so,
a swimming pool in December at
Yeah, yeah, we
26
can't-
defies logic.
yeah, we can't, you know, discuss how people suddenly choose bad timing on that.
Right,
So-
I mean, I guess, and that is something, and I understand because my insurance company said, why don't you get a lawyer?
And that's what I was gonna say too, because I mean, what you're talking about is criminal enforcement, but there is a civil negligence aspect that you may want to investigate with an attorney. I'm not saying that they are or they aren't, but you might want to look into whether you wanna pursue that, and you might wanna speak with an attorney.
I'm really not the suing type. I was really more inclined to just think of if you did it once, you might do it again, right? There's no sidewalk there.
We'll follow up, because we do have it documented, we have it in public records, and we'll go back and look at our, illicit discharge ordinance, and we'll cite it based on that. There's no statute of limitations on it.
There might be.
I
don't
don't
think it's.
Pamela would never wrote that in the ordinance, I'm sure,
Well,
statute of limitations.
Yeah, I think that there are statutes of limitations on civil and criminal
Right.
enforcements, but right now is not it. I mean, this just happened months ago, so
Yeah.
we're not even a year out.
I was gonna say, is it from the date of the incident or the date of awareness?
It would be the date of, I would say the date of the incident in this case.
Yeah, the action, the cause that
Yeah,
would be the
they
date of
Probably
start-
have that
start the
date
clock.
Close to it, but
Yeah.
again, you're not even a year out from it, so there's not a statute of limitations issue on any type of prosecution.
I just think about the students that walk down that road,
Well, we're trying to be very,
or other people.
aware
I know
of
the
things like that, you know, in borough land as compared to township land, we contract out with Central Berks for police. And we use our liaison as our mayor, because in typical borough code, the mayor's in charge of the police department. So every month, we ask, you know, we get a report from the police chief, incidents and things like that. So we sort of rely on them even for deteriorating road conditions. You know, you know, the police know to call and say, hey, there's an issue here, something there. So that's how we sort of try to keep aware of stuff like that. So,
The illicit discharges online, it's still
still there?
there.
Yes.
It's
So we will follow up on our ordinance and have some action that way.
All right, so should we be notifying the police department of that ordinance?
Right.
And,
And then they'd want a copy, so.
yeah,
the
Yeah.
ordinance would-
Corey, that's all on you, okay?
Can I get a copy?
Sure, it's online.
It's online.
It's on the website, the borough's website.
St. Lawrence
Yeah,
Borough.
I-
Do you
my
have,
son-
do you have your email, an email address you
I
can give
do,
me? and I'll
Yeah,
send it?
absolutely.
I can send it to you, I have your email address.
Okay.
There we go.
And
Okay.
this is my second part of my dispute, and it's just something between my insurance company and me, and that's how it started. They're claiming that the man was draining something into a storm drain.
Right.
But my bigger cause was the fact that they shut down the road. Like, who pays for that?
Well, typically the citizens do. Same thing as an accident occurs. Someone hits a telephone pole, the road gets shut down. Is there a cost to that? We send people out, road gets closed till it gets repaired. You know, everybody gets inconvenienced. So in the real world, everybody ends up paying somehow for good behavior or accidental behavior or bad behavior.
Yeah.
So,
And a lot of that's also fire police.
Yeah.
involved in the shutdowns.
But if there is I'll say a section or subsections in the illicit discharge ordinance that say what he did was not allowed, then I think, like you're saying, you're gonna be, as a
Yeah,
attorney, can be enforced.
Yeah.
It can be enforced, yeah.
So, that's important for you to give to your attorney, if you choose to do so.
Like I said, I was more just concerned about it. And I know it sounds horrible.
be aware that,
Doing something wrong again?
be aware the only reason we had that ordinance was because of the stormwater permit we had. Portions of Exeter are not covered by their MS4 permit, some of the more rural areas. I know that for a fact. And they have a map that shows that. So some of the behavior that's regulated for us is only because we were adjacent to a metropolitan area that wasn't, in fact, had to be covered under the stormwater permit. And we got, the way the regulations were written, if you were abutting or adjoining a regulated area, you became a regulated area.
Yeah, I mean, this is an environmental protection ordinance, it's not a.
Nuisance ordinance or something.
Nuisance ordinance or an
Yeah.
ordinance, under the vehicle code. And, you know, again, that's another reason that you might wanna consult with an attorney besides anyone, besides your insurance company.
So it being an environmental code, does that mean that the police could not take any action on it? Any criminal action?
I believe the police, well, it depends whether it's a criminal or a civil penalty. Most likely, the police aren't enforcing illicit discharge. Most likely, it would be the borough enforcing illicit, discharge.
So hopefully that helps frame everything for you a little bit.
A little bit, yes. And then if I could have this in a report, or do you do that?
What's that, have one in
Or
report?
township meetings?
Oh,
We have minutes, this will be brought up as a minute, in the minutes.
It'll be in the minutes, yeah, public comment is in meeting minutes, and, they'll be approved at the April meeting. Minutes of this meeting will be approved at the April meeting.
Would you need a right to know request to have those, or?
Well, they'll be online,
They will be online and the video will be online of the meeting.
Yeah.
I'll ask you questions. All right, I just, like I said, I wanted to make sure that, you know, that Blake just brought up.
That's scary, I mean, as a mom, you're right behind the kids, I mean, that had to be, oof.
Joan, I have a question.
Awfully scary.
So, I know that the discharge, it's not criminal, but, and you can discharge your pool where, I don't know. But the discharge, once it started coming out on the road and causing the hazard, is that the cause for, like, they would write a warning letter?
My concern is that, I mean, first of all, and it's an illicit discharge, but I guess the question is there anything in the vehicle code against creating a nuisance on the road that could be enforced?
It's very interesting because at a time, almost every house discharged their stormwater coming off their roofs right into the street. And until I think the last go-round of the state doing the curbs, did they eliminate those pipes coming out and discharging. Some of the side streets still have that discharge.
Yeah, some of the side streets will have a hole in the curb, and that's sort of groundwater or sometimes stormwater off of their roof that comes straight out into the street. So it's possible you could just have,
I wonder if it was running at such a fast pace as the pictures I showed you,
yeah.
and the amount of ice and water that was in the road in so many minutes.
I've seen places up on Jacksonville Avenue where I've thought maybe there was a water line break, the water was coming out so much. But I know there's springs.
And that's because it
and
was
groundwater.
raining?
No, it wasn't raining at all. Hadn't rained for like 3 days. And that's why I said, geez, something's wrong. And a lot of times we have spring water come off the hill or subsurface and comes
Right.
out. So,
Right, so
you know.
what I'm saying is, like, if you drove everywhere on the 12th.
Right. No, I'm sure there would be everywhere. Right.
Everything was dry.
Yeah.
Now,
You know
a
what I'm
much
saying?
smaller extent to that is you got sump pumps. And right alongside of my house and stuff, we get heavy rain in the winter, we have a 6-foot wide sheet of ice going down the road.
From the sump pumps?
Some from the sump pumps, some just from the normal springs coming off the, you know.
Borough Way
Yeah.
used to be a sheet of ice.
So anyway, we're just trying to explain, you know, would it be unusual in any other places? There's other things that would cause someone naturally as compared to an action that caused that. So we're just trying to give you some reference for that.
I have the natural bird.
What's that?
I said, I have the natural bird. I really do. Like, we've lived in the country long enough in wet areas. I see where it runs off.
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah, well,
One,
you know,
December 12th, right before Christmas, we got a vehicle totaled. Even though she did the best she could, because it was a sheet of black ice,
Yeah.
so when she got bearings, she lost it right again.
mhm.
I
Once-
was crashed into her.
Once having a teenage son, I've had several, you know, vehicles suddenly disappear off the acid sheet. So, you know, I understand that.
So I just, yeah, I think watching it happen is a little different for me.
And you're saying this was preventable because this was an act of bad judgment that created a hazard that need not have existed, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
It's neglect.
yeah, well, it's, you know,
I know how
Understood.
gravity works, right? You're telling me when it rains, you have these hills and then water runs down it.
no, runs subsurface.
Well,
Yeah, we're saying some of this is springs and it's either the stormwater leaders coming off the roof, or I've been told some of that's like a French drain, so someone's backyard doesn't get flooded. It comes out the French drain, which pops out at the curb, a hole on the curb, and the water comes out that way.
The
Running
difference is
downhill.
this was something that was done intentionally.
Yeah, right, I
and
understand.
irresponsibly.
I'm just trying to frame it that it can happen in other places because of other things.
But it's never gravity working downhill. That's the point of this.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
yeah, I
There's
hear
a
what you're saying.
backyard, there's a side yard.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, so we'll go forward and we'll look at our illicit discharge and we'll cite, you know, that we have documentation of it, so.
Well, maybe the other thing council could consider is writing this person a letter saying, you're not, this needs to be discharged to the grass. You shall not, or you will be cited
Yeah.
by the police. It needs
Well,
to-
we're gonna, chances are that it caused an accident, we will cite him for it now and then inform him, hey, this is the reason why it is.
Right,
We have this ordinance,
right,
you know, and this is why we have this ordinance,
right.
and, you know, go forth and conquer, so.
And you know for sure he was draining a pool?
Oh, well, it's in the police report.
Okay.
And
And
they witnessed it, they
he
saw it.
knew there
Did
was
he own
an
for it right there
accident
then?
that
I
happened.
don't know if he knew there was an accident at the time, I was
Okay.
just trying to keep my children safe.
Okay.
Like I said, when we got out of the car, and we were next to the car that she hit, cause we knocked on doors to find the owner, we almost got hit by car number 2. And then car number 3 luckily swerved and ran off the road the opposite way. So that one didn't get close to smashing us.
I crushed the parked car.
And that's 3 minutes.
Mhm.
Because when it happened, I got out of my vehicle to tell them to stay in the car. I could barely walk across the road, but I instantly called 911.
Yeah.
Because their car was sideways, we impacted with another vehicle, and you couldn't walk. So I was just waiting for something else to happen.
So we've gone ahead and explained, we do have an ordinance, we'll cite him, I'm sure we will, make sure that he gets a letter and explain how it can be done, so.
All right,
All right then,
yes, thank you, I appreciate it.
our pleasure.
okay, thank you for bringing it.
Yep. No more public comment? We'll go to engineers report. We usually have public comment in front because if people don't want to stay, they can bail, so there's no judgment on you if you suddenly leave, so we'll just say that.
Last time I was counting. I'm not in uniform.
And unfortunately, you missed a meeting that night.
I did, I missed a meeting that night, and luckily though, everybody got to see us in our uniform.
Okay.
But
Take care, drive safe.
thank you, I appreciate it.
Engineer,
All right.
you're up.
All right, we had some backlog from our MEP group, so he promised me that they're going to start it in April. Yeah.
Like, start it and have a report, preliminary report by our April meeting, or are we gonna be waiting till May for this?
It'll probably be May.
Better like some fire under his feet.
I know.
I know it's not gonna be a very good answer in another 60 days.
You still get it for free. So, but they'll look at everything, you still, what we also wanna look at is you've gone through.
He can come out on a Saturday, I'll come in here if he wants to come on a Saturday.
It's a sheet.
She can come out on a Saturday if she wants. I've worked Saturdays before, to be on time, on a deadline.
I'll tell them that.
You certainly,
But you've gone through the winter, So now we really can see what your usage is, where before you were depending on the previous occupant's usage. So this will give us several months. I mean, it was a nasty winter, so it's gonna give us some good data on the usage and also researching the building envelope. And like we talked, also the existing units, looking at that and analyzing them. Are they better off being replaced and then fueled with natural gas? So there are some things, it's not time necessarily contingent, but yes, we will get started. Now, with the garage, as part of the MORE grant, we also want to look at the UCC code, because Derek, you understand that I know, hello. With the UCC code, there's the occupancy limit. So I still haven't heard, is it totally storage, is it, are you gonna hang out in there? Should we be looking at the different part-time occupancy, not full-time, but part-time occupancy, because the UCC code for the insulation is very different. So under the MORE grant, though, we can do that research for free, because that's part of, remember, we're doing both buildings, but we can do the preliminary research of how to design your building so that it meets code and it meets the insurance requirements.
I have a question on that. So with occupancy of so a storage building, that wouldn't be required to be heated to a certain degree if there was technically an occupation load in there, correct? Where if there was an occupation load in there, we'd have to keep the building at a certain temperature all the time.
And then there's certain insulation requirements because, of course, the loss of the heat.
So ideally, we want to say it was a non-occupied.
I mean,
Storage.
that's up to you guys. I'm just pointing out, here's the research that we'll do under the MORE grant.
Yeah.
Because it's appropriate for building your
Can't you give us a side-by-side comparison table?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So
When would that occur?
the same time as the whole audit.
Okay.
This is the end
And we're thinking this is gonna be done by April, May?
in May.
Okay. Preliminary report in May?
That's what I'm.
Okay. I just worry that if you're gonna build something for 30 years, not to be short-sighted, you know? And I've worked in places before where you're outside, have an inside office, and you have a continual tracking of mud and everything else, you know, because you have to wash your hands or go back to your desk. So I just really think, you have to really think twice that you at least ought to have a sink there. And if you have a sink, you might as well have a commode there, you know, so, you know, I just think, you have to frame that.
I don't know that we'd be dragging mud in though, because it's gonna be all paved surfaces, you know, from there in here.
But they might not be where they were working and coming in on the vehicle may still be muddy.
Have that.
We'll have a boot wash out there.
We do them.
Yeah, all right.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Take off
Yeah.
before you come back.
Yeah, I've done that too. I've had a place where you had to put booties on. You know, you had to take your shoes off, your steel toe shoes off, and then walk through the booties. It's just, you know,
We used to call them mud rooms, right?
yeah.
All right, so do both loads.
Just a comparison table of what, you know,
Yeah, what are the requirements and what are the approximate unit cost differentials if they can associate that? So storage versus partial occupancy. Got it. Right. Med-ed easement. Now, last time we all talked, you had a plan. Joan, I know, was gonna do research, and Derek was going to make some phone calls and also do some research and discussing with Med-ed and Jeff. So
Okay, I can tell you, okay, I can tell you where I am on that. We do have a contact at Med-Ed. The person who handles real estate recently retired. However, the contact that I have is directing it to the real estate and business units, but I gave the history of it, the recorded right away and what we're looking to do. So I expect to have a report for you next month.
I think there may be false hope if we think they're gonna give up the easement.
I actually do have an update on the easement. So I went through my contact with Med-Ed, and she forwarded me to a real estate manager. The easement is for a 20-foot width from the outer conductor, and it's measured from the outer conductor on ground width. It's not centered on the line, so it's 20 foot to the outside on either side of that conductor. And technically, the conductor gets wider towards the bottom, so the wires spread out. So the easement ends up being probably closer to 50 feet on either side, or 20 on either side. They do not allow any construction within. So it's not an aerial, it's ground, no construction within.
say that again. There's a 20-foot and a 60-foot.
So So we have the 60 foot separate to the one that's there,
Okay.
but the easement is written 20 foot from the outer conductor.
Which easement, the one from?
The one
both
where,
directions.
the vegetation one, the one that has the biggest impact on the building there. So on that picture there, the red line represents, the solid red line represents
Okay.
the outer conductor of the power line. The dashed red line represents that 20 foot from the outside conductor.
So it pushes it further. So the 60 foot really isn't the issue, it's
No,
this one.
So this one is written as the vegetation and obstruction easement,
So-
which if you read that straight off the cuff, you would think it would just mean you can't have anything within 20 foot of the conductor. It's 20 foot on the ground.
So it's access for them to get up to the line is what it really amounts to.
It's everything.
Yeah.
What about the other pole with the transformer?
There's nothing written on that one.
Nothing, there's no easement written.
The conductor.
So if you go outside and look at the conductors, they actually become vertical as they leave our property going towards Prospect Street. So the 20 foot then just becomes centered on all of them because they're all directly vertical. But as they go towards AVMA, they spread out.
Horizontal.
Yeah,
Horizontally on this property.
yeah.
So if the next pole down still having vertical,
It would be 20 on either side.
Right.
Versus now, because it's 5 foot spaced, it's, you know, the outer conductor on one side is 15 foot further away from,
right. So I wonder if they'd be amenable to changing that next pole to a vertical orientation.
that I don't know, we could ask them that.
And that would be a question I could ask their contact.
Because that would, what's the spacing between the conductors?
It's like I said, probably close to 5 foot. I mean, yeah.
Well, that gives you 5 foot, at that point it gives you 5 feet more. 5 feet's 5 feet.
I was hoping they were gonna tell me it was 20 foot center, which would have been 10, but it's 20 foot.
Yeah, they're not gonna, is that, did they say what voltage is that line?
I did not ask that.
Cause I think that's a feeder line over the substation, it's probably like 69 kV.
Makes no difference, we're not like, we have an easement.
Well, what I'm saying is, you know, even if it was, you're still not wanting to get real close to that.
But you just look at what you have there in that building.
All right.
You're now chopping out 5 parking spaces.
Well, you must count different than I, because I can't count 5.
Well,
But I see pavement and I see a couple of spaces, true.
Well, the X's,
Their grandfather, they're here.
but for access, okay. I just saw the X's on it, and
Yeah,
the
so-
DL will get around the back.
Those
But
X's,
even
those X's represent removing parking spaces to allow for access. And even then,
Right.
it doesn't allow for a full driveway width by our ordinance, which is 25 foot for a 2-lane access.
Why
Yeah.
would we remove those?
So I don't think anybody's asking us to remove them.
No, this is it. The building is also represented in that photo by that orange box.
Mhm.
That's the only place that we can sizably fit a 30 by 60 with trying to accommodate the access
But
around the building.
if the,
Oh, you lose
If
the
the
right to
box-
get into the building.
Yeah.
And now I understand,
right,
I'm sorry.
right, to be able to get into the building, and those 3 parking spaces there, they got a building right in front of them, how are you gonna get into them? The building is physically there. I talked to Mike Fritz, he called me the other day, and he's got a lot of concern about what this is showing. Number one, we probably, in fact, I can almost guarantee you, we would not meet our own zoning ordinances with our parking spaces for this building.
Oh, no,
It would be nowhere near,
we know that.
nowhere near. And now we're talking about removing even more spaces. 2, back a year ago or a year and a half ago, we talked about putting up a building down Lynn Avenue with Mount Penn. And we were all saying, maybe that's a good alternative. Why are perhaps we should be looking at using Lynn Avenue as the piece of property and not trying to shoehorn something that's gonna be smaller than what you necessarily need. Take away parking spaces, which are at a premium at this building, and use that land to maybe increase our parking spaces. We were all fine with Lynn Avenue, year and a half ago.
Well, this is a completely different situation. One, it was gonna be a co-operated. Two, we weren't looking to buy any land and increasing cost just to, buy land to the adjoining the schoolhouse. So to say everybody was in agreement to move it, to move
We're
there,
not buying land out of Lynn Avenue.
we own that land out there.
Yes.
How much?
Yeah.
I know, that's why the road
Yeah,
down there, it's
yeah.
our land. It's our land.
So you go there instead, when we.
Yeah.
Right.
I know, but I know we were only putting it there because we own the land and we didn't choose any other, there was no other option that we said, look, it'd be better here or there. We said that's because it's, we own that.
Right.
That's the only reason why we chose down there.
I think what we ought to consider the Lynn Avenue option because of what might be forced to do here. This obviously is not.
That doesn't work.
It's really, no.
We
it's
cannot take
not-
parking
it's-
spaces away from this building.
Yeah, it's not viable, so,
If it was a 30 by 50, how many parking spaces would you be taking?
Well,
3?
but-
Once again, I'm trying to shoehorn something.
yeah, but the other option
Yeah.
is that,
But then if you move to Lynn Avenue, you are going to have to make.
we're gonna have to have full restrooms and all that,
Yes.
that increases, yes, that increases the cost of the operate, that increases the cost of the building, that does increase cost, but we still should look at that as an option. The other thing we should be looking at though is, find out from Med Ed, what does it cost to move that pole with the transformer? And then rotate that building 90 degrees again, so it's not taking away anything from the parking lot.
That pole only feeds this building, right?
Right.
Because it has a can on it, transformer on it.
Right,
So we pay to relocate the pole,
right,
that solves one problem
exactly.
in moving it.
Right,
Right.
and I can talk contact them about that.
Derek, can you send Joan and I
That photograph, yeah, I'd like to have
Oh,
it,
yeah.
it'd be very helpful.
it'll really, yes.
And go ahead and Derek, would you go ahead and make one up showing that pole out there and see how the building would fit? And Warren, you want to go ahead and look at the Lynn Avenue and see where,
Yeah,
what would fit on there, a footprint on there?
You'd already done that, right? Wasn't there a footprint? Yeah.
Do you have that, do you think you can put that up later in the meeting?
Not tonight, I have to dig that thing out. That's a year buried.
Yeah, right.
But just remember, folks, when we were discussing the KPN, that you could do stubs and phase your garage.
Right.
You can. So if your budget's a certain amount, they'll back into it. And then you save a little money or you get another grant. Okay, now we can afford to do the next phase and so on. So you don't necessarily have to do the whole thing right up front.
Sure.
Just stub it out, and like Mike said, stub it out, be smart, look for the future. And if you think that, especially if it's a difficult.
So let's look at a couple of those options for our next meeting. I'm sorry, Mayor.
Yeah, I mean, if that
We
works.
can move the pole.
Right.
I didn't know that was an option.
Right, what if we can't?
Oh, we can move a pole.
I mean.
We can accidentally back into it and it'll get moved.
You mean the little wood pole that's,
The pole there indicated with the red dot on it.
yeah.
That's the feed to this building.
Built to the building.
It's a single 13-2
Is that,
primary.
is that the one that this easement is associated? with?
No.
It's
There's no easement on that other pole, on the line or the pole, because it's
Right, that services this building.
building.
Right.
So why are you saying that?
If we didn't have that line on the back corner there, we could pivot the building to where the pole's at
And stay out of the easement.
and stay out of the
We
easement.
always talked about possibly
Yeah.
relocating that pole,
Yeah.
because it was so close and the line sagged so much.
Right.
And we thought it may be about, which maybe Joan or Eric could ask, 25,000, 30,000, I've heard in the past.
I think it'd be less than that.
It will be less than that.
Mine's a last.
Because it doesn't have all the other utilities, it's
Right.
just basically.
Well, there's phone there too.
Yeah, but it's not like a pole out in the street with it.
No, it's a single primary feeding that transformer and then it's the building.
But 30,000, if it was that much, it would,
It's still,
It's probably that much more to go to Lynn Avenue.
yeah,
well,
Yeah.
it's a wash.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I will say the only benefit of Lynn Avenue would be there'd be future expansion, whereas.
Here, you don't have any future.
And, yeah, exactly, so it may be more beneficial to go to Lynn Avenue.
The dozer, the D2 dozer.
That can go, that can go.
We've got a
So
mayor.
So to extend this a little bit longer, someone from council was approached by Mount Penn saying, hey, does St. Lawrence want to be in their building that they're putting up somewhere? So I bring that up to council where there'll be no action, or if someone was gung ho on that idea, we could vote on that. I don't know if that's a road anybody wants to go down.
You've got to be kidding me.
No, I'm not kidding you.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the context of it was, it's gonna cost more money for Mount Penn than what they had planned on. Could we put some money into it and then have a 15-year lease type of thing? And that's,
Excuse me, I.
Go ahead, Mayor, again.
So, I'm just looking at the lot, now, I don't know, but I thought someone had said this front island, that we do have to remove it, maybe put a sidewalk in. So would that free up 3, maybe 4 lengthwise spaces right
We're
there?
gonna look at that with the land development.
Whereas then the garage could kind of go like this and take up those 3 spaces. Would that make it a little bit better? Because it
we'd
looks
be,
like.
No,
we'd be
we
going in
do.
the street right away.
We need more spaces to be
You're
compliant,
not gonna get.
so anything that.
Be compliant with what?
What's the capacity, how many do you have?
This building's compliant right now with spaces, so how are we not in compliant? By taking 1 space or 2?
We are not in.
I'd say women's club, I think we had over.
This building's not here for women's club, I'm sorry.
Example of 40 people.
Okay, they can go rent out,
That's an
the
example.
the civic center if they so desire. For daily business and meetings that we have, this building is compliant. I could make the same argument if they had that many people show up at the old
Yeah.
schoolhouse.
What about voting?
Huh?
What about voting?
More people are gonna vote online in the next 5 years, and, walking to a voting poll is gonna become, like having a landline phone. You'll be voting on, well, maybe not you, but you and I will be voting on our cell phone at some point.
I vote by mail.
So do I. So, but I'm saying, I think to say you need X amount of parking spaces for voting is not looking down the road. Lack of imagination, which I always claim I lack, but, so.
It's compliant, maybe because it's pre-existing, but it certainly does not meet our current code by any stretch of the imagination.
For square footage and occupancy.
Right. Nowhere near does this building meet our.
Oh, if it was a new building, a current.
Or if a new tenant were to move in, we have to force them
Right.
to meet current code.
Right.
With new tenants. We're a new tenant here.
Yeah.
All right, what's our to-do list? Joan and I, no. Who's looking at Lynn? Warren's looking at Lynn? You're looking at Lynn.
Derek's gonna look, see how much the whole movement is.
No, I'm contacting her.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's it.
And we wanna see what a footprint at Lynn Avenue would look like.
We can't
You,
go underneath.
when you go down and you hit the end of the townhouse, and you go across
So
the
they
way,
got right line.
and you look to the right, and you see all that scrubby land,
Yeah.
all that scrubby land. That
area
the
of the-
driveway that goes back to Bobby Beaver's is actually.
We didn't buy that.
No,
That was dedicated as open space.
Yes. it
So
was.
now you're gonna violate your open space?
Well, you're not, you're still on.
So I don't wanna be lectured about compliance with parking when you take an open space that was dedicated to the borough for open space, and we suddenly put a building down there also.
Put it on
I'm
the
just
other,
stating
put
that.
it on the other side.
I don't know if we're ordained to stay as open space, was it?
It was, because of that development, that became open space, got donated to the borough, so no one else had to maintain it except us.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to use it as something else, and it's donated and dedicated as open space, you're under Donated and Dedicated Property Act and would have to get court approval for that.
So it's not so easy to put it down.
Well, I'm not sure what all was
Yeah.
donated and.
That hole's looking
We have to
better.
look at some of the-
Lynn Avenue, has some baggage to it. Hey, back online here. So, just talk about Lynn Avenue. You wanna show us a footprint next time, Derek? We'll talk about Joan, you give us a primer on dedicated space and how you make it undedicated.
Yep.
Is the
Yeah.
whole space dedicated? complicated.
I'm sure it is.
I'd have to find out, but yeah, I'll give you the.
Why would that construction company give us any space that they could have built on? It's gonna have to be almost all, you were probably on the planning commission then.
40 feet back.
Okay.
1970s?
Probably, is there a
All right.
zoning or zoning?
This is so much fun. What else?
I do.
Engineer?
I do, and I forgot to do it before because I did it right after the meeting, and it's regarding Elm Street. So, I thought I emailed you. This was the answer for closing the Elm Street, signal.
Yes?
Elm Street signal. All right, so I did the research, I have the forms, the manual that's probably older than Derek,
And that's not very old.
1980. But yes, they haven't updated it. This all came from the person that I keep mentioning, Chris Soroki. He's the traffic
Yeah.
signal or traffic department out there. Very responsive, very clear. You know, he did exactly what I thought. Your choice is, do you want to start doing something now, or do you want to put this under the green light go? Because remember, we talked about green light go, we talked about the avenue, we talked about.
When you say close it, does this mean it's no longer on a timer or it's no longer used at all?
I think we should change it
Remove.
to a stop sign.
Yeah, right.
To a stop sign. Oh,
On
okay.
I'll make a motion that we, council proceed on removing the traffic signals at Elm.
Well, hold on a
Well,
second.
there's the whole-
Two options to that.
But the thing about it is, if we put it in the Green Light Go grant, we won't shoulder all the cost of removing it.
But we can also vote to have it done, have the permit in hand, and then still go for green light go.
No, there's a lot of cost, if you look at this, trust me, there's a lot of cost. So you're gonna have to do the signal removal analysis worksheet. And
Okay.
those worksheets. You have to then do, were there any crashes, so you have to get the research,
Yeah.
which we already did, I did get that.
Yeah.
Then you have to do the pedestrian count, you have to do the traffic count, you have to justify. Also, the vehicular count coming out of Elm Street doesn't then meet the warrant to keep the signal. So there's a lot of things that cost money.
Yeah.
And we always try to, if we could get a grant, that's our.
But the grant application is not until late this year. It won't be awarded till next year if we get a grant.
Early 2026.
Right, so then we're talking
I'm just pointing it out.
27 by the time you probably would have the light go down.
This is not our wheelhouse, so I would have to go out to
Yeah.
like Borough or get a quote to do all this, because this is their wheelhouse, it's not SDE. So I'm not going to blow smoke up your butt.
So you go ahead and can you go get a fairly good estimate of cost to fill out all the forms?
That's what I feel
Yeah.
sorry for, so that you can make.
Does that make sense?
But I'm telling you, it's not gonna be cheap.
And that,
And-
why don't you
and-
just put the raceway up?
You hate it.
Well, I don't anymore, because Derek put it on a timer, now I love it.
No,
I go up to it, I sit for a small amount of time, it cycles like a normal traffic light, and I make my turn.
it was supposed to be on it's supposed to be on the cameras. Something's wrong with the camera, software and our controller.
Detection module.
Do we have to fix that?
Do we have to fix that?
Do we have to?
No, because you can put it on a timer.
Can we leave it on a timer?
But the timer, they won't let us ratchet it down because you're sitting there while nobody's coming out on the timer.
Yeah, what's it, is it 20 and 40 or something?
I think it's 20 to 45.
I just worry that the cars coming up St. Lawrence Avenue towards the Borough pick up a lot of steam from Jackson
That's
going up.
the point.
And
It is a lot better.
I make a left there a lot, and I have a policy, I try not to make a left across traffic. 'cause you know,
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you, I lived in Penns Grant for 20 years, and I used that light many times a day, and it was timed properly. I felt much safer, because when I moved there, the light wasn't there. So I didn't have a problem.
But getting us a
with it either.
price quote will help focus whether we move it into Gully Grant or move forward at our own dollars. How's that sound?
And we're gonna replace it with a stop sign?
Yep.
Okay,
That would be-
because that would open up, and if you see our vehicle warnings and citations, they are very high, because that is like a raceway.
No, you
On
won't
St.
be a
Lawrence
stop sign,
Avenue.
you will not be stopped on St.
Yeah,
Lawrence.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, there's a
St.
chance.
Lawrence Avenue will not be stopped.
Could be like a long
I
time.
know the road runs traffic
You
up
will
there.
not
need speed up there a lot.
That's
Sit
gonna
there
be
on
like
the-
a raceway.
Yeah.
A lot of
That's the
speed.
field.
Yeah.
Well, let's go forward and see how much it's gonna cost, you know, and then we can always decide if that's the best action or not.
Especially when it functions, I think you all were upset because it wasn't functioning.
Right.
Maybe the
It's
best
functioning.
action
Sounds
is to
great.
go for a green light go grant to upgrade that signal so that it functions properly
Yeah,
with all
that would
the
be very
guts.
minor.
I can live with that.
We should still move forward
That's
with Green Light Go
fair.
grant
That's fair
anyway.
too, to, I mean,
Just because
traffic, that's good too.
The first set of Green Light Go is what gives us this detection system now, and this is actually a hamster model of what they've moved to. So
Up
we're
on
actually,
Avenue is where they.
all of our signals have, except for Perkiomen, have the camera detection system.
Gotcha.
But this is the very first iteration of the camera detection system. They've actually phased this out, it's obsolete already.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's possible the Green Light Gro's gonna, upgrading that signal will take the complaints off, is what I'm trying to say.
We could upgrade all
It
this.
would certainly help,
Well,
yeah.
maybe we can upgrade all the signals.
Yeah.
And then we could upgrade Perkiomen Avenue and take that pole out.
Yeah.
Right.
All right,
That pole.
we still need to know how much it's gonna cost to fill all the paperwork out.
Well, did Telco ever give you a quote to replace the cameras on that with the new camera? Or they,
Not for new systems, no. Right now, we're just it's strictly repair, and I haven't been actually quoted how much that will cost.
Part of the Elm Street issue is that signal box got hit how many times by lightning?
That was a big one.
Big, no, that one on Elm got hit too.
Did not know about that one.
Oh, yeah, so that one at least twice got nailed and then they did something, so we've had issues
so
back
how do
and
you?
Are there lightning arresters in those cameras?
Can you check on Green Light Go if there's lightning arresters or a potential too?
The new ones have them.
All right.
So I'm getting a quote from Borough.
You just so we can, you know, bury it, you know. So.
Yeah, if getting a new camera, I mean, that was.
No, it's the guts, you have to have the guts and everything, don't you? It's not just the camera.
Right.
Yeah, but that'll be part of, but we're gonna get them all done. That will solve the problem. I'm just saying it's 2 years of aggravation up there.
They actually are in traffic.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, right now, the time setup is working.
Yeah, but can we adjust the timer to any other
We
option?
cannot adjust timers
It's
without.
been adjusted once.
Technically speaking, right now, we're not in compliance with our permit, because the parts and everything of that permit is or for the camera detection system. So when the camera detection system gets fixed, we have to have that back in place and working order. Right now, we're just on an emergency permit, kind of, because the part is out of stock or on back order.
Simply because it's an obsolete.
Otherwise, we have to go to PennDOT and redo our permit to have it as a timed intersection.
Gotcha.
And you're paying for that.
We can't live without Green Light Go, right?
This is exhausting.
Hey, but at least you can say green light go, that's a plus.
Wow,
Anything else?
I hope not.
Okay, solicitor, you're up.
Okay. Talk to you later
Okay, my
about
first
something
item is
else.
update on 500 Parkview Road. I spoke with the owner this afternoon about the concerns about the condition of the property and the complaints of children and teenagers trespassing on the property. He is going to be checking the property this weekend. Clearly, it's not enough. And what I'd like to see, and I think would work in these cases, is to have a meeting at the site with the code official and the owner, and discussing the steps that are needed, such as securing the property with a locked gate, possibly having security present, and then the building would need to be made structurally sound, and there needs to be a checklist given of those things. So,
We're not going in the building.
no, you
because-
should not go in the building.
One thing, if you're talking about a gate along Parkview there,
Yeah,
okay. Back when we put in Maisie Way, the only exit coming out other than that was coming down through there, behind there, and using that exit.
okay. As
So
emergency
you may
exit,
have
That-
an emergency exit.
That fire lane belongs to the townhouses. They have a limited entrance.
Okay, so that.
Okay,
Because
so-
that
so
was
you
sold,
can't-
so
So
that,
a gate won't work in that
They-
case, but fencing the area.
and you
building.
can't fence it from, because PA American has to get in there because they have, an inactive we have a basin and their connection is to their sewer line is back in the area that doesn't flow straight in, so.
So they need to be given a checklist of what needs to be done to secure the building and bring it up to code.
We're getting almost a complaint a day on that building. We're getting more concern from the police because it attracts other activities there. And I think we really need to ratchet up, that somehow the building has to be made secure by fencing or something else. Whether it falls in or not, that's another issue. But the immediate issue is it's attractive nuisance, and we should probably go down some sort of pathway to get him to have to do this through the legal system.
All right, so I think what we're saying is the building itself needs to be fenced.
Yeah, egress,
Secure it.
it needs to be,
Portions of the
Yeah.
building are falling
Right.
in, so it is, yes,
Mhm.
it is in bad shape and it's on multiple sides. The fascia is falling,
Mhm.
there's holes in the roof.
Right, and when I emailed him this morning, I spoke with him today, but I also emailed him this morning, and I believe you received a copy of it, saying exactly where I believe the violations of the property maintenance code were.
Yes.
So he's on notice that it's in violation of the property maintenance code. Now, that's not a formal enforcement notice.
well, I think what we're gonna end up doing is every time we get a complaint, we're gonna send a code or assistant code officer down there, and and then start making a
Right.
list of how it's occurring.
We
And
can't go on
then
the property.
We can't go on the property, but at every complaint, we're gonna have to investigate and then keep a list up. And within the next meeting date, we're gonna be looking to go where the next action is, because it's costing us time and effort for public safety, for his, lack of upkeep.
All right.
So if he wants to go down that route, that's the route we'll have to follow.
Okay, well, when I talked to him, I told him that I would talk to him tomorrow after this meeting, and I will let him know that each complaint is going to be investigated. And what I think we need, as I said, is a meeting at the property to go through the steps that are needed. However, in the immediately, I think we need to advise him of this.
Do we keep a record of all complaints?
Yes, we do.
So we have a log already.
Yes,
We have a log of almost
We
every
have-
complaint.
yeah, phoned in and
We need,
Right.
updated from the police.
Yeah.
then we'll have the police, will formally tell us of their comments. Right now, it may not be as, formal as we would need for other actions, so we will get that bolstered or strengthened.
Okay, I will advise the owner of the property of this, and they need to get the property fenced, and then to meet with the code official to go over what needs to be done.
And what's your item 2 about the First Amendment to the Berks nature?
Yes,
What amendment?
Okay, back up, want me to?
Yeah.
yes,
Back, the original amendment said no motorcycle.
Yeah.
Or not the amendment, the action. We had gone through all the documentation and stuff, 2 years ago or whatever it was, to say we had motorcycles that
They help maintain the trails and stuff like
maintain
that.
the trails, and they have to get a permit, they have to have permission, and Joan had gone through and documented some of that,
Yep.
but apparently it never got signed by both organizations.
right, Berks Nature didn't say, we have.
They said they signed a copy, we had a signed copy, but nobody had a signed copy with both. I don't know what the.
So what do we need to
Okay.
resolve?
What we need to do is, first of all, they will sign, they're the ones that didn't sign the first amended and restated grant, they will be signing that. We signed it in, August 5th, 2022. Then the amendment that I prepared, is an amendment to section 4.03, section B4, that would amend it to say that vehicular use in the case of emergency trail inspection and maintenance or resource management purposes, and subject to applicable limitations, if any, in connection with activities or uses permitted within the highest protection area. Off-road motorized vehicle use is permitted with authorization and written consent of the owner. And that was, you and I had gone over
Right.
that language.
Along with Larry Boyd of Berks.
Yes.
So
So-
they're agreeable with it.
Right.
So what we're
We're
asking
agreeable.
is for council to approve this,
Amendment to the
amendment to the
amendment.
first amended and restated grant of conservation easement.
Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I oppose. Motion passes.
Okay? All right, I'll give it to Stu to sign at the end of the meeting.
As decided then, the other day, I was talking to Roadmaster and suggested that since Med Ed's no longer gonna have their right-of-way maintained up there, that we're vulnerable for wildfires and droughts and all that other stuff, but we have no means of maintaining any type of access up there right now with borough equipment. And I asked him if he could look into getting, possibly from the gambling money, grant money, a small dozer, D2 or D3 dozer, which would be our number one line of firefighting up there and maintaining any roadway, trails.
To get through.
Firefighting?
Well, you can cut a, you know, a fire break,
Okay.
or you could drag a truck up there, or a jeep, you know.
Are we gonna, you won't need to drag a jeep up there, but are you gonna provide, the roadmaster with the appropriate training?
Well, yeah, if we get the grant and get the thing, we will.
Wildland
Yeah.
firefighting? Okay. Because it's more than just knowing how to drive a dozer.
Well, we have to there'll be no maintaining of the trails up there for Med Ed's.
I understand that again,
So-
I don't
so
have,
Med
that I
Ed
don't
never
have a problem
maintained
with,
trails.
What?
Med Ed never maintained.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
So-
yeah, they use them to get some of their equipment out now. So,
Yeah, I mean, they maintain their right of way so they can access their lines.
right.
Okay, but what you were saying firefighting, there's a difference between maintaining a fire
Right.
break when there's not a fire situation on, but are you envisioning if there is a fire?
It's a fire truck, well,
Yeah.
book in there.
Yeah.
Fire
Yeah,
truck.
put it up
The
there.
idea would be, we would be able to have we would have means of keeping trails open for
Okay.
other firefighting equipment.
Well, I think
Alright.
the other part of that was maybe mutual aid if a fire department needed it. Like if someone on Mount Penn or Exeter had training, they could use it in an instance of a.
We would write in our grant application that would be also a mutual aid piece of equipment to other municipalities if they needed a piece of equipment like that in any firefighting situation.
Well, now some of the issues you're gonna have with that, perhaps you ought to go for a walk on these trails that you're talking about.
I have my life, I rely on you to tell me about all these things.
Well, it's like me telling you about
Everything
your
else.
job and stuff, and why don't you do this,
Yeah.
why don't you do that?
Yeah.
Without ever having seen it or dealt with it.
So
You haven't been in there.
it's a concept. Are you got some
What
concept?
I'm trying to say is there's streams going across.
Right.
You got gullies going across.
Right.
A Jeep could probably make it through, but he's not gonna make that a flat road with
Understood.
with a plow, because you'd be in violation of, you know,
Of what?
it's a stream,
Intermittent stream.
yeah. So,
Your own.
yeah.
I-
You gotta be careful with.
I'm not saying we're gonna go up there and have
Good.
I wanted to ask council,
Yeah.
what is our idea now if to have that woodlands burned down, and how would it be fought? And the answer is, I don't think it would be.
Yeah, it would be.
Well, it would be, but you know, how much damage would occur?
Access is limited.
Access is limited,
What I would propose first
yes.
is we have the fire companies go up there, and you have done some of that, right?
Yeah. But here's the thing too, DCNR has those resources.
And I thought
If they need to
the
bring
brush
them in,
hog-
they will.
The brush hogs, right, and all those kind of things.
Well, the DCNR actually has like D6
Yes,
Yeah.
but
and,
they does.
yeah,
Well, what
so.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
if they
And
need
just-
to, they'll bring that.
I-
Okay, and
Is
just
that-
yesterday, I cut a tree that came down,
Yeah,
I cut 2 or 3 trees actually, that I cut them wide enough for, you know, it's like 8 feet wide openings.
Right.
So that the trails are plenty wide enough without running a, you know. a
I think you're taking it by destructive means with this. I'm not asking that we go destruct things. I'm asking this would be something we could use to maintain. So we have no way to get up there, we have no way to maintain the things right now.
But you do have a way to get up into a lot of the woods.
Yeah,
Right now, you can get up to a lot of the woods from Adams.
You used to be able
You
to
can,
go all the way.
you can go, yeah,
Up to the high tension line and come
right,
back.
right, you can go all the way to the high tension line, you can make a turn, you can go all the
And
way
the
up, and virtually all the way to the back of the property, in the middle of the valley,
And the
pretty
high
much near the
tension.
middle of the valley.
right.
Then there's also trails that lead you up to the top
Other
of
areas,
Goulburn
right.
Hill.
And the high tension line used to be maintained to a certain extent because they were
Yeah.
killing everything on it,
Right. And
which allowed access through a good portion of it till you got to some of the very hilly stuff to get in there to get, to
Yeah.
stage
But there's a
yourself up
trail
higher.
right along the right of way that is maintained, right now.
And
That, all the way to where it starts to go, get
And who
steep.
maintains that?
No one.
No, that, the guys with the motorcycles will go in and clear the trees. It's cut wide enough, that's the instructions I've given them. Is it's gotta be kept clear and kept, so a fire truck can use these trails going up.
And
So why are we talking about a separate piece of equipment?
Cause I don't know how we're managing that. I just know it's been dry, there's been wildfires, and I don't know, I don't have a level of confidence that asset's being managed correctly.
Yeah, I think that better trails is not a bad idea. I'm not sure going there with a blade is necessarily.
That's debatable then, I'm up for other, thoughts.
also, Lower Houses Fire Company and Exeter Township Fire Department also now have ATVs, side by side.
Right.
Set up for wildland firefighting. So, I don't know that we need to, the borough would need to spend any money on getting a D2 or a D3 dozer, to maintain, we have motorcyclists keeping things open. I'd certainly willing to go up there with Warren too.
Why don't you guys come back and give us a report on some thoughts?
I'll get together
Yeah,
with
with
Warren,
Warren.
we'll go walk the woods.
Sounds
and
good.
We'll take a look at it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
I'll get with you.
Yeah, and this is something I've asked for a long time, is we ought to map the trails. And so
Well,
that,
if
and give it,
If you had a, we had,
Boy Scouts
Didn't we do
Right.
can do that.
well,
did we have the drone go over, can we show the, on that?
but I don't know if it shows a trail,
That wouldn't have mapped.
because there are trees above it.
Yeah.
The canopy blocks
Oh,
a
was
lot of
it
the
too
trails.
much?
No, it was clear vegetation, but you still might not be able to like,
See,
for instance,
Clearly.
decipher what is a Y trail versus
Can't
what is
see
just a.
clearly the trail.
Hey,
Right,
you want-
We'll go.
We can always go again.
Say, I can actually give you
You
the
can walk it with
GIS app, you can
GPS.
actually walk
Right.
it and.
Yeah, we can do that.
From our
Walk it.
system.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll gather the data.
Good.
Before we leave out of Jones segment, there's something that's not on this that we need to actually take care of as an action item. About 3 weeks ago, we received an epistle from an insurance company asking for a settlement in regards to an accident that happened in Elm Street on July 3rd, 2024. The accident took out other property, including took out some of our traffic signals at Elm Street. The damage that we sustained was over $3,000. The insured that caused the accident only had a $5,000 property damage insurance policy. The total damages were over $17,000. Now, because his damage policy was only $5,000, we're only entitled to, I think, 17%.
Right,
Of
and
his
it
policy.
turned out to be around $834.
Yeah, so of
prorated
the
share.
$3,000, we are only gonna be able to cover $800, I think it was $34. Now, the insurance company is asking for us to sign the release to get the money from the insurance company, but we would be essentially writing off ever going after him and any other.
Right, and I looked into certain different possibilities, one of which would have been restitution in his criminal case because he was charged with careless driving. However, that trial has taken place, he appealed it, it went before the Court of Common Pleas, sentence was upheld, so that's not able to be considered as restitution. If you sign the release, you can't go after either him or the insurance company for any more. pro rata release of a claim for which he doesn't have sufficient insurance.
What's our statute of limitations for any action at some point in the future? Because it was property damage by him, his insurance doesn't cover it, so if he had any assets, you could theoretically go after his assets, is that correct?
You could, however, if you sign the release, you.
Right, you don't sign release, we don't have any action. So was the operator, was the owner the same person as the operator?
Yes.
Yeah, the for property damage, in negligence cases, which is, this was, it would be a 2-year statute of limitations, so we're within that statute of limitations.
So in 2 years, we could come back and try to sue him for the $3,000 total instead of the $834.
I thought he said 17,000.
No.
17% of the, we only get, our allocation is only 17% of the total 5,000 of his insurance coverage.
And what the house he ran into was the highest portion of damage.
Because I had
Yeah,
14,000.
right, so that got the majority of.
Joe, just as spitballs, when we go for damages like this, can you also sue for legal fees?
No,
So we would probably spend $1,000 to get 3,000?
most likely, yes. And-
Okay, I'm just trying to
I mean,
make this.
The problem with this is if a person has minimal insurance coverage, chances are they have minimal income and minimal assets and would be probably judgment proof. That's
Got-
the biggest problem.
Got the car, how much is it worth?
I think that was total.
Yeah,
He's got a new car, I bet.
No, he's using an Uber.
It's better to take the money and.
Yes, they-
My recommendation is to take the $800 and some dollars, whatever it is, because I think that's all you're going to get, and it's gonna take a long time to pursue a very
Cost too
small
much.
amount of money. It's gonna cost a lot of money to do it. You have filing, just the filing fee alone is in the $200 range. Then you go to, you probably go to a magisterial district judge, because it is a smaller claim. You probably get the judgment, but again, someone with minimal coverage is likely to.
I can take $100 a month for the next 13,
You're probably not even getting that.
huh?
You're probably not
You
even
could,
getting that.
there's
On
some of the
principle
stuff
alone,
we
I
can,
agree, but I don't think it's.
you have to look at the checks we get from the courts.
Is there a motion to
50 cents.
sign for settlement?
You have to update, you have the motion to update the agenda.
Yes.
Is there a motion to amend our agenda? To discuss and action on the insurance settlement?
So moved.
Second.
Those moved and seconded, all those in favor to amend our agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Is there a motion to accept the insurance settlement of only $834 compared to our $3,000 some claim?
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Any more discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I oppose. Motion passes.
Quote you, Bob, I don't think the juice.
This is worth the squeezes.
Yeah. Look, I left no stone unturned, and I wanted to go after the restitution, and I wish we could have. Because that would have had the DA's office pursue that, and it would have been pursued through the clerk's office.
It would've been 14,000.
If it was 17,000, yeah.
Finance, anything new? Borough zoning, anything coming up?
I think we're at the mayor's.
Oh, okay. Sorry, skipped over. Mayor, go ahead and report.
Okay, well, I have a lengthy report in here. That is because the police commission meeting of March 6th was very lively. It started out with Chief Serafin announcing he's going to be retiring in February 2026. There was a heated discussion on how to handle his replacement. I have a lot of things written in here if you want to read more, but it was heated. The decision, time is of essence in order to train the new person, but the decision was held up, and you can read that in here till next meeting. Okay, so then the next thing, there was a very heated discussion where Mount Penn Borough Council is insisting on conducting a study of the police department. my feeling is all this is a waste of time, it's being held up. I feel all this could be detrimental to the morale of the police department. They voted against the study at this point, which I would have also. But that is, even though they voted against it, there's still some other things that were brought up, and they're still going to be voting on that, but that, again, was held up till next meeting. So both discussions were held up for next meeting. But I was able to talk to the police chief about our 100th anniversary and using the Vince Szymanski Stadium. And the chief stated that it is very possible, and Berks Catholic has the mindset that we have always been welcome to use that space if needed. So,
That may not be a true statement, but that's okay.
well, that's what he told me. That's what I wrote
He may
down.
think that, I don't know if the diocese of Allentown thinks that. We'll just move forward, so.
Well, I know somebody that was the past principal of Central Catholic, and we might have.
Any questions for the mayor's report?
I have a quick question. This was just Mount Penn attended?
If you look,
Franklin, Mount Penn, and Hunter.
Right, but
yeah, if you look at the
John Lopez,
commission,
yeah,
there were 3 from Lower Alsace and 3 from Mount Penn.
Did they also say no, or?
Lower Alsace was
I'm just curious.
agreeable with everything. They were okay with the handling of the replacement for the police chief, where Mount Penn was not. Same as the next topic, Mount Penn Borough Council were the ones insisting on conducting a study of the police department, and Lower Alsace was not in favor of even having to spend that money. Thinking about, number one, Mount Penn still states that they're going to merge. So why would you do a study that's gonna cost you, I think they quoted 48,000? Why would you do a study when you're gonna merge and all that's gonna be changed? And, as far as, being detrimental to the morale of the police department, Lower Alsace, members of Lower Alsace felt that the police department is run very well right now, everyone gets along, and they didn't feel conducting a study was necessary. They got into financial and operations of the police department, and as far as financial, some of the members thought, just get somebody to review the financials if that's your problem, but they also wanted to get into the whole operation of the police department. Why?
Well, Mount Penn had a study done on their state of being or whatever, and the report is not very favorable to them in several instances. And the report mentioned one of their biggest budget items is their contribution to the police coverage. So a natural outcoming of that would be, hey, let's go understand, is the operation of the police department, are we paying too much or too little? And I think maybe that may have started some of that mindset for discussions.
Right, and it's also the fact of St. Lawrence and Oldham, what we
Yeah,
contribute.
are we
not.
contributing equally for the amount
Right.
that we're paying for? So all that's sort of churning right now
Mhm.
at the same time, so.
Thank you, I just was like, why is just, minutes from Mount Penn, Mount Penn? That's why-
Right, yeah, and if you look at the, the commission, people on the commission,
Those were the actual attendance.
and then the attendance, yeah. But there was no one from Mount Penn Borough Council that attended, except for, of course, the mayor, Ryan Mauer, and Troy Goodman. I don't know if Thomas Baer is on their council or not, I'm not sure.
Is it true that Troy Goodman resigned from that council?
He did at that meeting.
No.
Yeah, he put his coat on and left. If that still holds true, I don't
More than him coat on.
Because he insisted he wanted to study and nobody else wanted to study, so.
So,
Appreciate
okay, any other questions?
Wow.
Oh, we're worried about the little shed, anything to report? Nothing? Borough zoning, haven't had really issues, but we're talking about the property that we need to strengthen some of our complaints against. Public safety, emergency management,
Nothing new.
public works, you're on.
My report is attached. The most interesting part on here is we received a street opening permit request from PA American for them to close Parkview Road to replace a sanitary sewer line on Parkview Road at a bridge. I did place a call into that engineer that placed that permit to us, asking me questions on why they plan on replacing that, considering it was just replaced within the past 15 years. He didn't have an answer for me on that. He was also confused why they were planning on replacing it. So I don't know why they're interested in doing that.
Was that a PA American engineer or a consulting engineer?
PA American engineer.
Okay.
His claim is he got a laundry list of things from video inspections, and this is one of the items. So they're gonna have to go back and review on that. So that's possibly not gonna move forward. But they also have an existing street opening permit in place right now for another sewer line replacement on Parkview Road down below Beechwood for the Wrighton interceptor. So he was also not aware they had that in the works. So,
I have some concerns about closing the street, because we have no control on how they're gonna staff, how they're gonna do it. And I think we need to have a little bit further discussions. If this is just the cost that, they're essentially gonna have to trench across the road, put a new one in adjacent or on top, or pretty much adjacent to the ones there to keep the same elevations. But I'm suggesting maybe we have discussions about they can plate that road. Otherwise, I don't wanna see a road being closed for 6 weeks. And, they use both sides of the road to stockpile pipe and stone and everything. And then, we have no control when it's gonna open again and stuff like that. So, in my opinion, we need a lot more detail on how to do that with the intent to minimize that road being closed at all.
Yeah,
Because it can't be done without closing the road.
I did tell him that I'm requesting a meeting for him to go over everything, detour routes,
Right.
hours of operation, length of stay for closure. So he has to provide all that stuff.
Yeah, because they wanted, April and May, which is.
School season. I told him those months would not.
I think it's intolerable to close a street for 8 weeks to cross it.
Yeah.
I mean, you could do other things.
It's not like it's a 4-lane
You're
road.
right, so.
They applied for it.
They do get.
Okay.
Well, they didn't get it, they applied.
Yeah.
One other thing I just wanted to bring up, since I did the report for this stuff, I just wanted to say that 2024 was our most active year of yard waste. We had 749 pickups, which is the most we've ever had since 2017. Now, we didn't collect as much debris as 2020, which was COVID year, so that still rules as the most amount of debris that we've ever removed from the borough for yard waste.
Do you report that on,
I think we add that to our,
recycling?
It's already reported to the county. It doesn't do us any good. It just goes to the county for their numbers, but it doesn't apply for any reimbursement from the state that you drop off electronic goods and yard waste and some of the other commercial stuff, and you only get the basics.
You wanna talk about the HVAC system?
we had 2 contractors come in here in the past month to do essentially a cost analysis of how much it would cost to upgrade all of our furnaces to gas, which would make the extension from UGI sufficient for them to pay for the line extension or the main extension of Prospect Street. I think the only actual cost we got was Comfort Care so far.
Comfort Pro.
Comfort Pro, sorry. And I think that one was in the realm of 80,000 for all 3 units, well, four units to be upgraded.
Can you send me that info so we can put it as part of the work right now?
Yeah.
So we're gonna build on that.
We also have a quote coming from Landis, who is a CoStarz contractor, so if we wanted to pull the trigger at any point in time, Landis, because they're CoStarz, we'd be able to do that.
Comfort Pro is attempting to
Yeah.
do co-stars, but that process may take them longer than they realize.
Can you
So,
schedule-
just,
Landis is mechanical.
yeah. So two objectives was, let's get a ballpark number, because we're gonna have to be thinking in terms of budgeting and stuff like that. Second thing is, we need some sort of, something concrete to be able to tell UGI, we either want the gas line or we don't want the gas line. So I don't know if council's at that point now. All I keep reading is electricity's gonna go up 30% a year from now on because of AI. sucking electricity for data centers. You know, I don't know, I don't see the same increases for natural gas, but if you want to go to natural gas, the sooner you get these things in, the better, because all it takes is something else, and these other projects sometimes get delayed, you know, because of their other businesses, you know, whether it's an emergency event or something else. So, is council sort of on board to maybe, you know, tell UGI to bring a gas line in or not?
I am. I think that's gonna be, you know,
I think that's the way to do it because of the backup generator.
that and the fact that it's gonna be less expensive to heat the building with gas than with electricity.
And emergency management wise,
Right,
you,
it's-
you
yeah.
don't have you don't lose your gas lines coming in.
Right, and the fact that.
So you couldn't ask for UGI to put a gas line in for an emergency generator?
No.
And there's not a demand for that?
Right.
So we would have to say, yeah, we're making a commitment, we're gonna go to natural gas, us committing to that, then we can go with some sort of confidence. UGI has the confidence that we are gonna be doing that.
Right.
So I sort of ask the council if they wanna ponder on that, or you wanna move on that, or what? And once we get a line in, what do we have, a year to change over, or something like that? Is there a time frame?
You have 1 year.
1 year?
Yeah, 1 year from the time, or they're gonna send us a bill for.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I will say is I don't think there's anything that's requiring you to convert the whole building. So if you only wanted to do like the first floor to natural gas and then wait another budget cycle to do like the second floor.
As long as doing the first floor is sufficient for UGI, they're.
They
because-
just claimed just to use heat, they didn't say how much.
Well, I do know that when I converted that home to natural gas, that was your primary source of heat.
I think that's what the rule was, because we couldn't do it just for like the garage or anything, it had to be.
The garage didn't count.
Yeah.
If we
It
did the
didn't
garage,
count.
it
Well, if we
has
did
to
the
be
whole
the
first
building
floor,
has
it'd
to
be
be
the
the
majority.
primary main.
Yeah, it would be 3 of the 4 units if you do the first floor.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other reason is, if you make that decision, then you make the decision and get the pricing for the generator. And those are having longer lead times because people rather have the natural gas ones versus the liquid fuels ones.
Plus, you're also having to get a much less powerful backup generator because you're not running heat from
Compressors.
electric.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, electric.
Yeah.
You're right.
Furnaces are
Resistance
a lot.
heating.
Yeah, no resistance heating is on it, yeah.
And the motors and stuff that are running.
Yeah, the motors are all variable
Both
speed.
motors, well, that makes sense.
Yeah, we asked them if we could, you know, be able to change everything on the phone, which they, you know, so we sort of asked, trying to look in the future to get, but it's, once again, it's all a range of dollars, plus, that's the very first step, we have to decide if that's the way we wanna go or not.
So I think we should proceed with letting, you know, UGI know that we're gonna be looking to convert this building over to gas heat.
But do we have firm prices on what that's gonna cost?
Firm, no, because Comfort Pro
Comfort Pro gave
is
us,
not a
it's
CoStar's.
not a CoStar, we're waiting for Landis, they were working on trying to get it by today,
Yeah, can I
but
propose,
they don't have it quite yet.
Wait till
we
it's-
wait 1 month?
Well,
Okay.
could you make the motion that once the Landis quote comes in? Or do you, I mean, I guess it comes down to.
Or do you
Well,
want-
how
but it
much.
depends what the dollars are too. I mean, it's.
Well, I was just asking if we're gonna make the commitment to go to gas or not.
Yeah, I think there's a strong feeling we ought to be doing that.
You're
So
looking
by
for-
waiting 30 days, are we gonna be changing our mind if we're going to gas or
More
not?
like
That's the
100
question.
range.
And to tell you the truth, Comfort
Price is
Pro could
too-
go up
too
because
high.
that, we cannot go with that Comfort Pro quote. We would have to put together a bid spec, take it out for
Yeah.
bid, because they are not CoStar.
But when they heard all that stuff, they said, we're gonna look into going to be a CoStar.
But it's not as easy
Right,
as
Right,
they
we
think.
understand, this was all,
Because Landis has to itemize every bolt
Either
and
way,
nut.
you're looking at about 100,000, give or take
Okay, yeah,
20.
plus or minus 15,
Plus or
20%,
minus,
you know.
You're looking about 100.
Now, I will say, I think a bigger cost was the second floor unit because they had to tear a wall out or the ceiling up to get the unit in there.
You can do that.
Make sure your engineer looks at that when they come in the next 90, 180 days, so,
There. Remember how to do that.
That's at the.
I-
It's,
Well,
I think you almost have to have a motion to council that we wanna move forward and have natural gas brought in by UGI. I think we need something in the minutes that then go
I think
forward on
it-
that.
Yeah, I think there should be a motion, and because it's under the,
I think you have to update,
public works
you have to
report,
update the
you don't
agenda.
need, you don't need to amend
Oh,
the
you don't have
agenda
to?
for it. No, I don't think you do.
The lead time is 6 months for gas service.
That's what they're gonna tell you, and of course, if they could show up next month, we would all be happy, but if they show up in 6 months, we won't be as happy. So,
No,
you know,
if they show up in 6 months.
yeah, I just wanna get in the queue. If we're
Right.
going that way,
And we have a year from the time they finish the project
right.
to get it converted over. So I'll make the motion that we notify UGI, we will be proceeding with converting this building to natural gas heat.
Is there a second?
Second.
Was moved and seconded for notification to UGI. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed? Motion passes.
Hope to help me sell the old building.
Just wanted to throw that out.
I know. Anything else, Roadmaster?
That's it for my report.
Library, Mike's not here. Joint Comprehensive Plan, Warren?
They had the public meeting, Mike Fritz was there, and myself.
Anybody from the public show up?
Yeah, we had about 45 people or so.
How many from St. Lawrence?
I-
I'm just asking, because I know years before, there was 0 participant by St. Lawrence Boroughs in the joint comp plan. And I'm just trying to gauge if there's been more.
Well, I would.
Public
I would-
awareness
I would-
for it.
I would venture to say yes, it probably is proportionate to the school district because it was sent out to everybody in the school district about the meeting.
Okay,
And there were people, I know some people were talking about things in St. Lawrence,
okay,
like the shopping center
yeah,
and stuff like that. So there was, do I have a number? No.
okay.
But Dave Hunter basically ran the meeting, he's kind of he wasn't planning on running it, but.
Is there any actions on our part after that meeting?
No,
No.
there's no action at this point. But they got things to look into.
Yeah.
I mean, there were a lot of individual complaints, somebody didn't like the light that's at Shelbourne and Jackson, and Gibraltar. They liked the four-way stop better because, you know.
Whatever.
And there was a lot of stuff I had, and they went through, well, what entertainment should we bring, sports entertainment. And it was things like, well, we should have a bowling alley, I missed the bowling alley.
Yeah.
You know,
It sounds like old people.
for the most part.
That would be
it
good.
was-
I miss that bowling alley. They had
Um,
really, really good wings.
Yeah.
All right.
And a hotel, they wanted, but there was talk about a hotel when that was brought up, that it was proposed for the old promenade shopping
Yeah.
center there, but that deal apparently is falling completely through.
Great. Anything else?
That's it.
Municipal lands, anything else?
Other than Dave and I are gonna go look at the trails.
If we're gonna rely on volunteers to maintain the trails, can you give us like a monthly update to put into minutes? Of like what they worked on and how much hours and stuff like that? Is that possible? Once again, I'm just saying, I'm asking, you're assuring me, you don't need anything else because we have these great volunteers, so maybe
Well,
we can get.
what they do, when I see it along the main trail.
Yeah,
The only area where I did the cutting was near the old quarry.
yeah.
And the reason why
They don't ride their bikes up there?
they used to,
Okay.
and we asked them
Not
not
to.
to, because it's right near homes and
Yeah.
stuff. So,
But you see what I'm saying?
I'm maintaining those trails myself.
I'm just saying, we're relying on volunteers to do something. To me, it makes sense that we sort of formalize,
Yeah, okay.
With their actions.
Yeah, I can talk to them and
Yeah.
have them, see if they can.
color the map up or something,
In this month.
circle them out. We worked on this.
Yeah, in fact, they just cleared that, took a couple trees that came down out of the right of way for the old power lines,
Yeah.
and they cleared those up within about 2 weeks of the trees falling.
I pull out the recreation.
Recreation, Easter egg hunt, April 18th, starting 0900 promptly at the playground. Also, all three of the playground leaders from last year are coming back.
Veterans.
We have veterans, yes.
Oh.
They did an outstanding job last year, I'm looking forward to more of the same this summer.
Okay, and then
Very excited about that.
Going back to municipal lands,
Oh.
Allison caught me when I came in, there is a newsletter apparently going out. And I will do my walk in the woods again for people to get familiar with the woods for the,
What date's that gonna be?
I believe it's gonna be between Good Friday and Easter, that Saturday.
That would be the.
What's the 23rd, 19th?
Yep, 19.
I think I have to go home and look at my calendar, but that's what we tentatively said that this evening. If it's not, that'll be the 26th, the following Saturday.
Outstanding. Planning commission, anything?
I don't know of anything at this point in time.
Not this time.
Zoning hearing board, nothing? Good, general comments, public meeting announcements, anything? Public meetings, Borough Hall, zoning hearing board meetings would also be here if we had to have them. Changes to office hours, Borough closing at,
Not until after the 10th, no, 18th. So Good Friday's the only day, so it'll be at next month's meeting.
so April 19th is no,
18th.
is,
18th, yeah.
18th is no, is what?
Yeah.
Office is closed.
Office
Good
is closed.
Friday.
Office,
Good
Good
Friday.
Friday.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Anything else? Executive motion, executive session motion to enter executive session, discuss personnel matters?
So if you wanna do that tonight or not.
You wanna go to new business first, and then we'll circle back if we need to, so I see no old business. New business motion, resolution 912-2025, appoint Andrea Hines George to the planning commission. Is there such a motion?
Make a motion to adopt resolution 912-2025.
Thank you.
All right.
You've been sitting very patiently.
Yeah. Welcome to
Planning
municipal
commission
government.
will not be like.
Is there a motion, you second it? Who seconded it? Motion been moved and second to appoint Andrea Hines George to the planning commission. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, motion
Okay,
passes.
you wanna scare her away.
Yeah.
I didn't tell her how long.
Wait till she gets to the first meeting, that's when you get scared.
Yeah.
Resolution 913-2025 to reaffirm and authorize signers for borough banking.
We,
We're gonna be long.
Pliget, changed their policy for signing, so to make, because we had to do new signature cards because they have Ralph and Susan off, so that the state and, PennDOT can stop having their apoplexy because both Dave and Susan could sign checks. So we had a finding on that because even though they never
Family member.
have.
Right, so Susan was an assistant secretary and had signing rights, so now it's gonna be aligned. Is that
So
correct?
it's just that, and it's only the Pliget account that it matters to, and that's where we keep the majority of the liquid fuels money.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 913-2025, reaffirm and authorize signers for borough banking.
Second.
Motion been moved and seconded for resolution 913-2025. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed, motion passes. Resolution 914-2025 to reappoint James Blures to the planning commission. Why doesn't he sit here tonight? He's been on the planning commission for like 30 years. 30 years?
You talked to him?
You know, I
I did.
Okay.
He called and he said, yeah, he wants to stay on.
As long as he's
But
agreed to
he'll,
it.
you know, he said maybe if in a year, he may resign, he may not.
when you're on there that long, you have to get your own replacement. I think that should be
We,
the rule.
we did actually have another person who expressed interest in the planning commission, so I will tell her we will keep her in line,
Okay.
for the future.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 914-2025, to reappoint James Lewis to the planning commission.
Second.
Motion been moved, seconded for resolution 914-2025. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed, motion passes. We got contacted by the Women's Club of Exeter about maybe using the new Borough Hall to hold their meetings. And this is because they used to hold their meetings at the library.
Oh, Mike's not here.
Yeah, mine's not here.
And apparently, that's not working out so well.
So they're apparently they're at a different building. She came in because they used to go to the library all the time. Apparently say they're no longer allowed at the library, so now there's some other building,
The Dunn
Dunn
the
Center.
Dunn Center, so now they want to come here, but on top of it, she did ask about storage, and I said, I don't think that council will agree to the storage situation. So, but they want to have their meetings here, but also are they, if I do call her, are they allowed to have all of their functions here?
I heard Dave go.
Is also, like, that needs to be hashed out before I
It
call her.
seems like everybody's using this
Well,
meeting room, not that one.
Dave, you have the floor?
yeah, my heartburn with this is, they're the Women's Club of Exeter.
I agree.
So if we set a precedent by letting organizations from outside the borough use this borough building, we will be inundated with requests to
Right,
use this facility.
and really won't be able to say no.
Exactly.
And then don't forget,
I
who's
think-
gonna be here with
What-
all of these people that nobody knows.
Exactly. And kind of makes me wonder why they're not allowed to use the library.
I was told some things.
Got
I'm
rowdy.
not going to repeat them,
Well,
not really.
could
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if there's,
So, and if Exeter Township's willing to let them use the Dunn Center, why would they want to drive from Exeter all the way here?
Probably are giving,
I mean,
well, if there's no motion, there's no action, and we'll move on to the next line item.
Suggestion, I'll speak to Jack Galati and maybe he'll
Yeah,
let him
you
use it.
use the country club at one of the rooms.
So we have a motion to use Inline Construction Company to remove both of the walls in the line conference room for $4,200. So one of the things we've always talked about in here before is, do we want to remove those walls, make that a super big room, and make us without the walls? So that's the cost. Is there a motion, discussion? It's up to you all.
It wouldn't be super big, but over.
Yeah.
It'd be bigger than what it is now. I thought originally we were talking about removing it in-house.
I don't think that's a good idea. I think it'd be better to have a contractor come in
everybody's too busy.
to our satisfaction, you know. No disrespect on your carpentry skills.
I will say I couldn't do it, but I just don't know. Like,
When?
once you start it,
Yeah.
you're down that rabbit hole. You know.
so I'll make a motion to use inline construction to remove the walls from small conference room over there for the sum of $4,200.
Did they say when they could get to it, once they get authorized?
No.
I wanna make sure we coordinate our energy audit with the wall down.
I just gotta do that quote, so that's all.
That's
Just
okay.
pass that to them.
I'll second it.
Motion moved, seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, motion passes.
Are we, so when anyone calls, only St. Lawrence clubs?
No, we didn't say that. No action was taken.
It was.
It might be better for Mike when he comes back, then maybe he could help explain some things. I think that's what I heard everybody say.
Carry to our
Right,
agenda.
yeah.
Next meeting.
Is Mike aware of that situation? Like, can he do homework ahead of time, so we don't just?
Well, he just had surgery.
Well, I mean,
Today, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he has plenty of time to do
I
homework.
was gonna talk to him Monday.
well, I'm just saying, so he doesn't come in here and we go, hey, why is the
Yeah.
library not this and
I'll,
this?
I'll mention it to him when I talk to him.
He could have phoned in. He might be on tramadol, but, you know. Is there a motion to go into executive session, or that could die if there's no action? We were talking, the last meeting about our personnel,
Man,
manual, so I'm sure that's probably what that's about.
You wanna do that now?
Yeah,
You do?
yeah. You guys all had a free dinner a week ago when there was plenty of time, so I'm ready to pound everything out tonight.
So 45 minutes for you, Bob. Bedtime at 10, and that's on the camera.
I think we'll move fast.
Okay.
Is there a motion to go into executive session?
I don't think an engineer.
No, engineer doesn't be here. No.
Allison needed.
What?
yeah, I might need it in the executive.
I don't think so. Unless you want to sit here and talk about it, I don't, you know.
We had something.
Is there a second?
Wait.
No second? I'll second it. Is there a motion to go into executive session? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Close the door.
Aye. All opposed?
No,
How many noes? 3, 4? Okay, 4 noes.
not tonight.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Really, that got shot down, huh?
So moved.
Did you have the no's on there?
No, 1, 2, 3,
And 4.
and 4. We moved the yeses then.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second? Motion been moved and second to adjourn. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, motion passes. Thank you so much, everyone. Holy smokes, we get paid! I was just doing this for the fun part.